welcome. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for us to have you here. Thank you for joining. We live in a time of uncertainty, changes, challenges, but something is true. No matter what situation we are facing, losses, pain,
can anybody hear me?
Diseases, there is always hope of a better tomorrow in which our kids, our loved ones, could live at peace in joy and love. Today, we have here with us an example of that. A man who went through such situation, and because of it, he is an example of struggle, faith, courage, an example of never giving up. Some of us may have had a difficult beginning, but we cannot have a happy ending. In his own words, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. Welcome, Mr. Sami Steigmann.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I am extremely happy to be here to speak to you virtually. As you can see, I have a website, so please feel free, okay, to connect with me. At the same time, you will be able to see the same presentation on your own. When I am talking about the Holocaust, first of all, we have to understand the background. So then you can relate to what happened to me and to the other people. I live in Manhattan. I live under the poverty line in the most expensive city in the country, which means my monthly income is $1,360. And as you can see, I still smile. I've been in so-called house arrest for almost 10 months. The only time that I went out was to go to the store or to a restaurant when it was in the summer, once in a blue moon. However, my positive outlook in life, which sustained me throughout my entire life, also helped me during this particular time. So, okay, so I'm still remain a positive person. But as much as we talk about the COVID-19, there is another virus that is much more dangerous. And that is the virus of bullying, of bigotry, hate, anti-Semitism, and ideology. They cannot be eradicated throughout every generation. It just takes a different form. The only way we can combat that particular virus is through education. But when I'm talking education, I'm not talking about remembering that during World War II, 11 million people were murdered. Among them, 6 million were Jews. Understanding how millions of regular people all over the world were convinced that is required, okay? How the ordinary Germans feel patriotic by hurting the Jewish people. That is what I consider education. And the most important one is to learn how to spot signs today, okay? So he will not allow history to repeat itself. Okay. So what I'm going to do, we're going to talk, first of all, about the background of the Holocaust. The Holocaust did not start when the Nazis came to power in 1933. It started long before. The Germans, when they came to power, their intention was not to murder the Jews. Initially, what they wanted to do is they wanted to open up uh, to have a Germany free of Jewish people. So what they did is they came out in 1935 with laws, and the Germans are very abiding citizens, to make it easy for the Germans to accept that the Jews should not be in Germany. And these laws were called the Nuremberg laws. They took away the citizenship from the Jewish people. Doctors could not practice medicine. Teachers could not teach. Children could not go to school. So the Jewish people formed their own hospitals, their own schools, their own sports clubs, and everything else. But a lot of them left Germany. And at the beginning of the war in 1939, only approximately 200,000 Jews remained in Germany. And they remained because the Jewish leader told them, this is the most advanced country in the world. Don't leave. And we know what happened afterwards. Now, all the tragedies in the world have started, first of all, with words, with bullying. When I use the word bullying, you can bully a person, you can bully a group of people. What happened is they started to discriminate. And then in 1938, November 9, November 10, for the first time throughout Germany, there was a riot. It was called, and it's still called today, Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. They murdered over 100 Jews. They destroyed about 7,500 synagogues and Jewish stores throughout Germany. And they put in prison 30,000. By the way, the first concentration camp in Germany, Dachau, the Nazis did not go after the Jews. They went after the communists. But it so happened that most of the Jews were Jewish. I mean, most of the communists were Jewish. Now, we have to understand the difference between what happened in Europe and what happened in Poland. In Europe, they occupied. When we are talking about occupation, it means that the local government still has certain rights. On the other hand, Poland was annexed, which means that Poland became now part of the greater Germany. So here in Germany, they did not want the Jews. And they found out in Poland that there were there 3.3 million Jews. What do you do with them? That became now part of the greater Germany. And this is how slowly things are evolving. It's not happening suddenly. So the unofficial date of the Holocaust is June 22nd, 1941. Behind the Wehrmacht, the German army that attacked former Soviet Union, there were special groups, and they were called Einsatzgruppen. Their job was to kill the Russians. They were considered by the Germans subhumans, and to murder the Jews. As a matter of fact, with the help of the local people, the Nazis murdered by bullets 1.5 million Jews. Throughout the war, they murdered 1.5 million children. But that was unofficial. Officially, however, it started in January 20, 1942. 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together in a city which today is part of Berlin, Wannsee, and decided the final solution of the Jewish question. Okay, the word Holocaust came later. So what they did is they took every European country, they saw how many Jews lived there, they came out with a number of 11 million people. Once they were going to murder all of the Jewish people from Europe, they wanted to open up a museum, and they were going to call the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. What is very important for you to understand is we should not make today comparisons to what happened in the past. The only thing what I want to do is to see the signs, like for instance, words, okay, discriminating against people, posters. Today you have social media that can lead to discrimination, riots, violence, and everything else. So we have to look out for those signs and to become active and to stop it. There is also very important for us to know, I'm an Israeli, I lived in Israel, I served the Israeli Air Force, and I want you to understand the connection between the Holocaust and Israel and the importance of the state of Israel, which is the only Jewish state in the world. During the Holocaust, Jews died because we did not have a country. There were only 3 countries that officially accepted Jewish refugees. That was China, Dominican Republic, and Philippines. But on Memorial Day, which is celebrated every single year throughout the world by the Jewish people, we remember the people that died in Israel for us to have a country. So I want you to understand the connection and the importance of the state of Israel when it comes talking about the Holocaust and talking about the Jewish people from all over the world. For me, the Holocaust is not a Jewish issue. Yes, 6 million Jews were murdered. But however, there were also 5 million people that were non-Jewish people. So it is a universal issue. And we have to understand that everything starts with words. And I will quote the minister of propaganda under Hitler. And he said, lies told long enough becomes truth. So I'll give an example of some of the words that people use today, even people in the government. Here, and obviously I'm talking about the US. People call that there are Nazis in this country or in the world. There are no Nazis in the world. However, there are people that believe in the Nazi ideology. So do me a favor, do not use the word Nazi. Use the word neo-Nazi. Somebody else said, okay, that Holocaust is happening in the world. That is a lie. Because there is a difference between Holocaust and genocide. Genocide is made out of 2 words. Geno, which means group, cider, murder. When you use it in words like infanticide, murder of an infant, homicide, murder of a person, suicide. But Holocaust is a unique moment in history. It was the annihilation of a group of people. And I'm going to repeat again so you know. When they were going to succeed murdering all the European Jews, they wanted to open a museum, and they were going to call the Museum of the Extinct Jewish Race. The official name for Holocaust is the systematic, bureaucratic murder of 6 million European Jews. Most importantly, sponsored by the state. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm looking at this number, 6 million. And to me, it's just a number. I cannot relate to it. But if you will be on your feet and silent for 1 minute for each one of the 6 million victims, you would be on your feet and silent for 11.5 years. Here is something else that I was completely shocked, which I did not know. In 2013, there were articles in London and in New York. The Nazis and their collaborators had 42,500 different types of camps. This is the most recorded crime in human history, and it is the worst crime in human history. So if once we understand how things evolved and what can lead to tragedies like today that is happening, all the genocides, okay, we will be able to combat, okay, those things. By the way, as a Jew, I do not fight just anti-Semitism. That refers only to one group. I fight hatred. No human being, no group of people should be discriminated, should be victimized, or should be felt victim. Okay. So let's go somewhere else. Once I gave you a little bit about the background, let's talk first of all about my parents. Because I'm not only a Holocaust survivor, as a Holocaust survivor, it means that I was in one of the 3 types of camps. There was the concentration camp, where they divided who will live and who will die. There were the labor camps, where I was there with my parents, and all 3 of us survived. The camp was liberated by the Soviets, by the Red Army. In a labor camp, you became a slave. And the third camp was the death camps. The function of the death camps was to murder around the clock, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And take a look. From the 42,500 different type of camps, only 6 were death camps. That was Auschwitz-Birkenau, Treblinka, Belzec, Sobibor, Chelmno, and Majdanek. So let's go back and let's talk. So I'm not only a Holocaust survivor because I was in a camp, I am also a child of Holocaust survivors. So I belong to 2 generations. My father was an orphan of both of his parents. My grandfather died before he was born, unable to take care of 8 children. My grandmother decided to take the 2 youngest ones and commit suicide. A stranger saved the children, but my grandmother did commit suicide. My father grew up in an orphanage. He became streetwise. It's a different streetwise than today, but that helped him during the war. It also helped him to provide for the family after the war, when there was not enough food for the entire population. My mother, on the other hand, was an uneducated woman. My grandfather had a store. He did not allow my mother to go to school. She had to stay home to help provide for the family. In addition to that, she was also abused by her stepmother. But especially for the young people, whether you like one of your parents or not, you have the genes of both of them. And in your entire life, there will not be any other person that will love you more than your parents. They are willing to give up their lives for you. I took my confidence from my father. I took my sensitivity from my mother. And this is me, 3 months old. I was born in December 21, 1939. I am probably the youngest Holocaust survivor that you will ever meet. I met I met only one person that is younger than me, and I know of a person that was also younger than me. She was born in January 1945. Being in a labor camp, you're a slave. Children usually did not survive. And if you will ask any survivor, what is the reason that you're alive today? Everyone will use only one word: luck. My luck was that I was never separated from my parents. The Nazis found use of me, and they did medical experiments on me. I suffered all my life from head, neck, shoulder, and back. I still suffer from it, and I will always be in pain. However, I learned to live about 30 years ago, to live with the pain and not use painkillers, because it affected, my lifestyle. Okay. So after they finished with the medical experiments, they had no use for me. So they let a lot of people die of starvation. And there are physical signs when somebody dies of starvation: big head, swollen stomach, swollen feet. Not far away from the camp, there was a farm owned by Germans. And I want you to understand, please do not stereotype. The German woman brought food to the guards in the SS, which means that she had access throughout the camp. And one day, she saw the physical signs that I'm dying of starvation. She had compassion for a complete strange kid, and she decided to give me milk. And I want you to understand the courage of those people that help strangers. They risk not only their own life, they risk the life of their entire family. People like her are called the righteous among the nations. I do not know her name, and I was not able to honor her. However, in 2014, I was in Israel and Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Museum, and next to the museum, there is a garden honoring 27,000 non-Jewish people that saved Jews. And I was extremely happy seeing a marker honoring the unknown righteous among the nation. So indirectly, the woman that saved my life is honored. Okay. I want you to understand that the Nazis were not the only bastards. So were the Italians, so were the French, so were the Poles, so were the Ukrainians, so were the Hungarians, so were the Romanians. In every war, there are acts of sabotage. In reprisal for an act of sabotage, the Romanian troops rounded up 19,000 Jews from Odessa and burned them alive. As a Holocaust survivor, I will never understand the inhumanity of man towards man. Okay, let's see why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. My mother and I were born outside of Romania. What I'm going to show you right now, everything here is Romania. My father, on the other hand, was born in Romania proper. In 1940, the Soviets gave part of Ukraine to Romania. And that's why we were deported by the Romanians and not by the Germans. In 1946, the Romanians allowed a small group of Jews to return. My father, being born in Romania, he opted to go back. And for whatever reason, we settled here in an area called Transylvania, in this area, which is part of Romania. In 1961, the whole family went to Israel. I served in the Israeli Air Force, 1962, 1965. In 1968, I came to the United States by myself, without money, without language. The reason that I came to the United States is I wanted to meet my uncle. From 42 people, only my father and my uncle survived. My uncle lived in California, but my uncle was not a survivor. He was not in a camp. My uncle was a refugee in Shanghai, China. Okay. And one thing led to the other, and eventually I stayed in the United States. For 63 years, I felt that I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors. I felt that I don't belong to the Holocaust survivors because I have no memory of that period of time. And until the trial of Eichmann, Adolf Eichmann, which happened in 1961, I will tell you shortly about it. I also, the Holocaust survivors did not talk. They wanted the children to grow up a normal life. Before I go any further, let me explain to you who Adolf Eichmann was. If you remember, I told you that in Wannsee, 15 high-ranking Nazi criminals got together to decide the final solution to the Jewish question. Adolf Eichmann was among them. He was not one of the policymakers. He was the one that implemented it. And I use him as an example of the efficiency of the Nazis and their collaborators to murder in a short time 11 million people. Adolf Eichmann, by the end of the war in 1944, deported in only 2 months 437,000 Hungarian Jews to their deaths. There were 2 trials. There was the Nuremberg trial, and there was also the Eichmann trial. The Nuremberg trial was not about the Holocaust. It was about bringing high-ranking Nazi criminals to justice. However, the Eichmann trial, which was held in Israel, was shown all over the world for 3 months, for 3 hours every single day, and 102 Holocaust survivors spoke there. That was the first time that the Holocaust survivors did not feel guilty, did not feel ashamed, did not feel like victims. But by that time, I did not ask my parents. So that's why I don't feel that, I did not feel that I belong to the Holocaust survivors. I also felt I don't belong to the children of the Holocaust survivors because most of them were born in DP camps, displaced people. These camps were run by the Allies. Okay, they were provided with food, with medical care, with clothing, and the threat of death did not exist. Okay, so what happened is on November 1st and November 2nd of 2003, the Holocaust Museum in Washington, D.C. closed its doors to the general public for 2 days. It opened it up only to the Holocaust survivors, their children, and their liberators. Now, they had that particular event for at least 15 years before. Don't ask me why, but in 2003, I decided to go. There were over 8,000 people in meant to be at the table where I was sitting. I met the men born in the same city, been in the same camp, the same years, 1941, 1944. He was taken when he was 8 months old. I was taken when I was a year and a half. This is the difference of history and living history. By meeting him, that prompted me to stop ignoring being a Holocaust survivor and do something about it. In 2007, I joined the Holocaust Museum here in New York. And in 2008, I got my first assignment to speak to sixth graders. And I want to understand, okay, a lot of people are saying that there is nothing I can do about it. That is not true. Each one of you, okay, has the power to make a difference in this world. But you must believe in yourselves that you have that power. And I'm going to give you a quote. To the world, you may be one person, but to one person, you are the world. We are all connected. We make a difference in somebody's life. So what happened is when I spoke to the sixth graders, number one, I had no idea what I will have, what effect I will have, because I did not have a story. I never spoke public. I did not know that I can tell a story. I did not have a story. And at the same time, it was my first presentation. Again, meant to be. They sent me thank you letters, each one better than the other. But one sixth grader changed my life forever. She wrote, P.S. Your story was overwhelming, and I promise I'll pass your story to my children. Because of her, I have decided to dedicate the rest of my life to reach as many young people as I can, nationally and internationally. And I want you to understand, I'm not only a victim of the Holocaust, I'm also a victim, okay, of persecution, anti-Semitism, anti-intimidation after the war when I grew up in Romania. I am not only a survivor of the Holocaust, but I'm also a survivor, okay, of life challenges. And by telling you my personal story and how I overcame those challenges, I don't want you to feel sorry for me, but I want you to realize one thing. Based on your own experiences, your own personalities, remember one thing, under no circumstances should you ever give up, should you ever lose hope. Uh, I'm going to talk about Holocaust deniers. And what happened is, I will after that will stop to give you the opportunity to ask about 3 questions. Okay, and then I will talk about being a motivational speaker. I'm coming from a generation that is very stoic. When I'm in pain, you will not see it on my face. My parents never knew that I was all my life in excruciating pain. In 1971, my parents came to visit me in the United States. They went out, and when they came back, it was one of those days that I was in such excruciating pain that I was on the floor and I could not move. My father was completely shocked. I don't think he ever intended to tell me. But seeing me in that pain, he mentioned to me that I was subjected to medical experiments. It did not help me with the pain, but it gave me the courage to ask for compensation in February 8, 2002. I had absolutely no evidence. Number one, the doctors did not come to my parents and tell them, this is what you did to your son. They did not know, I don't know. At the same time, okay, I was homeless. So I had no documents. I lost everything. And in 2002, I had no witnesses. Even my parents were gone. So I did not expect an answer. To my surprise, 2 years later, in January 26, 2004, I got an answer. Interestingly enough, they wrote, based on the information and evidence you provided. What evidence? Your eligibility has been established as a victim of medical experiments. If you remember, it was not based on what I wrote. It was based on their records. And this is what I want you to remember. Fully aware that no amount of money can compensate you for the severe injustices that you suffered, we do hope that you will regard this payment as a symbolic acknowledgement of those injustices. What that really means is that the German government admits that they did medical experiments not only in Germany, but they did it also in other countries, and that I was one of them. And this is very important for you, because I'm going to talk now about the Holocaust deniers. And remember one thing, you are my witnesses that the Holocaust did happen. I spoke for 7 years in a row to 735 seventh graders in New Jersey. In 2015, a reporter was there, May 6th, and wrote a very nice article. The neo-Nazis, 2 days later, okay, in May 8th, 2 days later, they picked up that article word by word, and they put in the internet that I'm a liar. It took me about 3 months, 2.5, 3 months, to realize that in a simple headline, they called me 3 times a liar. Jew holohoaxer. Holohoaxer is made out of 2 words. Holocaust, hoax. Hoax, it means that it never happened. So if it never happened, how can I talk about it? Obviously, I'm a liar. Oops, sorry. Claims Nazi medical experiment you can't remember. That is a true statement, but they don't say why I don't remember. Because my parents did not know, obviously I don't know. Still causing pain. It's also a true statement, but they don't say why I don't remember. I don't remember because my pain is not localized. My pain is shifting, and it can be from place to place, and the intensity of the pain can be an 8, or it can be a 3, 2 and 3. And I never know it. And I've been in pain, I will always be in pain for the rest of my life, every single second of my life. Then they write here, unlike the millions of other Jew holocausters, millions of people are not liars. Millions of people were not experimented. And they write here, somehow was not experimented by Joseph Mengele. If you don't know who he was called the angel of death. He separated the people who will live and who will die. He was a doctor. He did medical experiments, but his interest was only on twins. They also say here, this Jew is nothing but a lying rat. When you call another person or another group of people by the name of an animal, Jews were called rats, okay, you are dehumanizing them. That is a license to hurt. Please do not call anybody, any group, by the name of an animal. I gave you a lot of information to digest. So I want to stop a little bit, and I want to give you the opportunity to ask about 3 questions about the subject that we talked. Later on, we will have a Q&A session, and you can ask me about anything you want. So right now, I want just to concentrate on what I talked. Come on. Come on, let's not waste time. Somebody come.
If anybody has any questions, please, I'm going to ask you to put them in the question and answer section. I think due to the format of this webinar, Sami, I'm not sure if people will have access to opening up their microphones.
Okay.
So I have a question right here.
Sure.
It's from a person named Fabiana Caoli, which is, how many years were you in the labor camp?
Okay, I was there from 1941 to 1944. I was there for 2.5 years throughout the entire period of the camp that existed. And when the camp was liberated, I was not even 4 years old. I believe I was about 3.5 when the camp was liberated.
Thank you very much. Fabiana, can you hear me? And if you do, can you please try to turn on your microphone to see we can actually ask the questions with by voice? Okay, I don't think it's possible right now. Sami, we have another question. Yes, Fabiana?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You can hear. Perfect.
Please speak slow and okay, and loud so I can hear you. Yes, go ahead. Fabiana, go ahead.
I don't have further questions. Thank you.
Yes.
Arturo, if you can just please voice your question, please. Arturo Morua, I can see that you have a question.
Ya vi cómo. Some methods to deal with difficult situations.
Grace, can you please tell me what the question is?
The question was some advice to deal with difficult situations, Sami.
Say it again.
Some advice for difficult situations.
A difficult situation for me?
What will be an advice to when you are struggling with difficult situations?
Well, I believe that even in the worst situation, there is something good that is happening. So like, for instance, right now, what I really enjoy is to be with young people, okay? So I traveled a lot before the COVID-19, and I was able to engage the young people. So all of a sudden, I find myself living alone, okay, in an apartment, house arrest, cannot go out. So the bright side was Zoom. Yes, I cannot speak as often as when I'm traveling. However, on the other hand, I can reach people from other countries. So here it is something positive, even in a very, very difficult situation. And like I gave you an example with the neo-Nazis, with that article that they wrote and called me a liar, instead of getting angry, I turn a negative into something positive. And I use it as an example, okay, for you to learn that not everything that you read, not everything that you hear, not everything that you see is the gospel truth. There are very good many sources, and please do the research. One thing I forgot to tell you about that article on the internet by the neo-Nazis. There is one thing that they did not put in. They did not put in that I got paid by the German government. They did not put in that that the German government admitted that they did medical experiments in other countries, not only in Germany. So you have to be very careful when you read something, because people that want to deny certain things or want to tell the truth, they know how to do it and they use the proper words. Okay. One more question.
Okay, Sami, I have one question for you. Do you think that the world today has overcome this type of thinking, this type of rhetoric? Are we still struggling with this idea of a group of people being better than others? What do you think? How we evolve from this way of thinking that happened during that time?
Well, I do not like to make comparison to that past, but things are happening today. Okay, in the initial events are happening the same thing with using by words. Today you have the social media, they're using posters, they are using propaganda, okay, to indoctrinate young people and everything else. And as you can see, Holocaust will never happen again. There is no ethnic group slated to be completely annihilated from the face of the earth. However, genocide does happen. And the only way that we can combat it is by us to stand up when we see the initial signs that can lead to it. If we don't do it, okay, it may be too late, like it was in World War II. Okay? Let me go now. Okay, talk a little bit about one more.
Yes, Fabiana, please.
Yes.
Was it difficult to adapt to your life, like a new life in the United States?
Say it again, please. Grace? Grace? What did you say?
Was it? Go ahead, Fabiana. Go ahead. Just do it slowly, or please.
Difficult for you to adapt to a new life in the United States?
Well, even in the United States, if I understood your question correctly, even in the United States, there are right now signs of anti-Semitism, okay, hatred towards the Jews. There are the internet, what's happening over there, it's unbelievable. Holocaust deniers, people full of hate, write things that it's unreal, okay? In this day and age, knowing what happened, why it happened, this is not appropriate in this day and age. I also want you to understand there is a difference between anti-Semitism and hatred. Okay, they are not the same thing. You can hate a person for the way they look, because of their language, which country they came from, the skin of their color, their beliefs. Okay, are they liberal? Are they conservative? Are they in the middle? For many, many, many reasons. Anti-Semitism is only against Jews, and it's 4,000 years old. I'm going to tell you something that very few people know. There are three groups of people that are called Semites. These are the Jews, the Arabs, and the Ethiopians. But when they use the word anti-Semitism, they refer only to the Jewish people. So there are signs today, okay, that can lead what happened in the United States, okay, with words, with internet, with propaganda. It did lead to violence, okay? It also led to persecute certain groups of people. So your job will be to educate yourself. You cannot combat something effectively if you are not educated on that particular subject. So please do me a favor, educate yourself. And I would have a very big favor to ask you, mentor somebody that is not as educated as you are on that particular subject. And slowly, okay, we will be able to combat this very dangerous virus of bullying. Okay.
Sami, we just have two more questions before we move on to the next topic. I'm gonna ask you the question, and then when you finish answering, we're gonna give the space to Miss Melissa Lopez to ask a question. One of the questions that they were asking is, was it difficult to you to move to the United States after being in Europe and being in Israel? Was it difficult to you to arrive to the States?
Yes. The reason was, from my father's side, like I said before, from 42 people, only 2 survived. And these were actually the 2 youngest children that my grandmother took with her when she decided to commit suicide. And that was my father and my uncle. My uncle was a refugee in Shanghai, in China. And in 1952, he came to the United States. And I wanted to meet her. And that's why I came here in 1968. However, one thing led to the other, because I came without the language, I came without money, and I had a cousin that promised my father that he would help me. He was very, very wealthy. He did not help me, so I had to struggle. But one thing led to the other, and that's why I remained in the States, where I got married, I had my son, and I got divorced. And then I went back to Israel, but I'll tell you this on the next session. But I came because I wanted to meet, my initial goal was to meet my uncle. Okay?
Thank you very much, Sami. Melissa
Yeah.
Munoz, if you can just ask your question, please.
Yes.
Do
What
you
is
want
your
me to,
opinion?
wait a minute, do you want me to go to the next topic, or do you want to ask more questions?
Just one final question, Sami,
Yes.
and then we'll continue with the next topic. Please, Melissa, go ahead.
Yes.
What is your opinion about the people that justified the action of the Nazis?
I am not sure I fully understood the question. Say it again, but slower.
What is your opinion about the people that justify the action of the Nazis?
Well, look, you cannot legislate by law how people should feel. You can say, based on the Constitution, whatever, you have it in the government papers, everybody is equal. It sounds wonderful, but you cannot force, you cannot legislate how somebody feels. So what I do, I try not to stereotype, because many times people say certain things, and it's not always anti-Semitism. It's not always hatred. It's sometimes because they are ignorant. And that's why I am saying, before I judge somebody, I like to talk to that person and ask, why do you feel that way? And then I can understand, is it really anti-Semitism? Is it really hatred? Or is it something that he picked up, okay, and he uses it without really knowing the consequence of what he's doing, what he's saying? So it is very important to have a dialogue and not to be confrontational. Do not judge, okay, before you ask questions. So for me, what I do is, in my own way, I try to combat and to teach young people, especially young people, okay, to how to fight, okay, hatred. It is, it's going to happen. Like I told you before, it cannot be eradicated. It will always be there. It will take different forms, but hatred will always be there. But you have to educate yourself to learn how to have a dialogue with somebody that hates. Now, there has to be one condition. That particular person must have an open mind. If that particular has a closed mind, there is nothing you can do about it. Okay? So you can not change somebody. You can show to somebody else a new perspective. Like I am, what I'm doing to you, I'm showing you a different perspective. You will have to make the change based on what I told you. I cannot change anybody. You cannot change anybody. But all you can do is to give them a different perspective. But you can do it only if you become educated. Okay, in different sectors. And I want to tell you, each one of you have that ability, and I'm going to repeat it. You must believe in yourselves. That's the most important thing. And after that comes education. Okay, let's go to the next topic. Okay, I was in Mexico for 3 times on a speaking tour. And if you look at this picture, you're wondering, what does it have to do with the Holocaust? To be honest with you, it has nothing to do with the Holocaust. But about 3 years ago, I started having difficulty walking long distances, going in an incline, and climbing stairs. When I visited, my friend took me to visit the Aztec pyramids. We went to the Pyramid of the Sun, which is the highest pyramid in Mexico. And I looked at the stairs. There were about 7 levels. My goal was not to reach the top. Knowing the difficulties that I had, my goal was to reach the first level. But as soon as I reached the first level, I said, you know something, I rested a little bit. Why don't I try for the second one? And slowly, little by little, I found myself on the top of the pyramid. I'm using you as an example, as a motivational speaker. When you achieve your goal, do not be satisfied with it. Always push yourself one step further. You will be amazed what more you can achieve. So I'm using this particular picture as a motivational speaker to empower you not to be satisfied, okay, with achieving your goal. Always push yourself to go one step further. Now, I went through a lot in life, and my motto in life is I'm not what happened to me. I am what I choose to be. And I choose, based on my conditions, my situation, to be a happy person. At age 56, in 1996, I became homeless. I lost everything. I even could not be in touch with the people that I knew because I got involved with the wrong people. I even tried to commit suicide because I'm not a street person. And I have been able to overcome, okay, being homeless by volunteering. And I'll give you 2 examples. I used to volunteer at 18 different organizations because each one gave me something that was missing in my life. And the first one, this still exists today, Big Apple Greeted. If any one of you will come to New York, you can contact Big Apple Greeted, and there would be somebody that would be willing to take you for free and to show you the city that they love, any area. By taking visitors from other states and other countries, number one, I had the human touch, which was missing in my life. We all need that. Second one, I made friends with people from all over the world, and I learned about different cultures. Today, if I would have the money, I could travel almost anywhere in the world, and there will always be somebody that will host me and that will show me the city that they love. The other one is an organization that today does not exist anymore. They went bankrupt. It's called HII. My job was to distribute tickets to underprivileged people like me. In New York, we have, you heard of it, we have Broadway. The Broadway tickets are extremely expensive, okay? And being homeless, obviously, I couldn't afford. And we all also need the cultural thing that is important to us. So by distributing the tickets to different people, what I had to do is to write a report, who came, who did not come, were they on time, were they not on time. But I had 2 perks. Okay, number one, I was able to see the show. I've been able to see more Broadway shows than you can think of. Concerts, ballet, opera, sports, even something that I would not watch on TV, and that is wrestling. But when I had the opportunity to volunteer to go to Madison Square Garden, I loved it. because being there at the, in Madison Square Garden, it's a whole different experience. These kids screaming, knowing what's happening, the fireworks and everything else. Every time I had the opportunity, I would go. So this is an example that when you volunteer, number one, you will volunteer for something that is important to you. And believe me, you will get a lot more than what you put in. Now, this is something that I want to tell you. I became homeless because I gave money, a lot of money, and some of it I had to borrow to people that I trusted with my life. Obviously, they turned against me, they did not return my money. So I have many reasons to be angry for losing my home, for being on the street, and to be bitter. However, I am not. Number one, something that is, I don't know about Mexico, I'm going to talk about what's happening in this country. In this country, there are two things that I don't like what's happening. Number one, people have forgotten how to disagree in a civil way, And the other thing is, they don't teach the young people to take responsibility for their own actions. Everybody blames somebody else, nobody's at fault. When I became homeless, I have decided to take responsibility for my own actions. And I said, you know something? I made two mistakes. I gave them cash. You cannot prove it. I did not put anything in writing. You cannot prove it. So first of all, what I had to do is I had to accept the past. I made a mistake. I had to let go of the past. But the most important thing, I had to decide to forgive myself. I also had to decide to be kind to myself. By doing that, I said to myself, they took money from me, but they're not guilty. They took advantage of my stupidity. By taking responsibility, I became a free man. I don't have the need to blame anybody. I don't have the need to blame circumstances. I made a mistake. Again, I forgave myself. I've been kind to myself. Time to move forward. All of you have a choice to react to any given situation in a positive manner. That will allow you to be in control, and we all want to be in control of our own lives. I also learned that suffering is universal. Nobody escapes it. However, to be a victim, that is optional. Nobody can make you a victim. The only person that can make you a victim is you. So remember, victimhood is optional. My whole life was and is an unfinished journey made out of choices. And you heard that before, and I'm going to say it again. I am not what happened to me. Don't allow anybody to define who you are. Your actions will define who you are. I am what I choose to be. And although I live under the poverty line, I choose to be a happy person. We all make choices. Do me a favor. Please choose wisely. The other thing that I have is I have a son. I have the two grandchildren, and I'm not allowed to be in touch with them. How do you overcome something like that without being angry, without being bitter? All of us all of us have a want and a need. The want is if it happens, fine. If it doesn't happen, no big deal. But the need must be fulfilled. My need, my want, don't ask me why, but my want is to go to Australia. If it happens, wonderful. Does not happen, no big deal. However, I have a need to teach and to share. I cannot do it with my son. I cannot do it with my grandchildren. So I had to find a substitute, but a healthy substitute. So therefore, today, for the time that we are together, all of you become my substitute children and grandchildren. That allows me to fulfill my need and to move forward, not to be stuck in the past. Okay, and that's very important, which I want all of you to do. Okay, the past belongs in the past. There is nothing you can do about it. Okay, accept it, recognize it, it happened. You have to forgive yourself, be kind to yourself, move forward. We are talking about being an optimist or a pessimist. Most people, when they talk about optimism and pessimism, they use the example of a glass being half full or half empty. I use a different one. A pessimist sees in every opportunity a problem. There is always a problem. But I am an optimist, and I see in every problem an opportunity. And let me give you an example. When I was in the shelter, I was a very heavy smoker, about 3 packs a day. It was a time that I was a broken man and did not want to live. So I said to myself, you know, when I will quit smoking, cold turkey, which means suddenly, I will recover. I did not say I will try. I will try is not a commitment. I said I will. December 13th, 1996, I had my last cigarette. Interestingly enough, I've been an optimist all my life, and even my mother could not understand where I took that optimism from. And I could not put it in words. All I said, that's me, I don't know. But, okay, sometimes a word, maybe something that I said, or will say today, maybe something that, a sentence, something that you read about, who knows, can change your perspective. And I volunteer for an organization, it exists in Mexico also. It's called Make-A-Wish Foundation. And this is, okay, helping children that have a life-threatening disease. In 2002, a boy, his name is Cole, he came to New York to meet his heroes, the firefighters. And with Big Apple Greeter, I showed it to you before, okay, I gave him a tour of the city. In 2004, he came back and the firefighters made a very big party for him, okay? And he was, at that time, he was already 9 years old. And he wanted to see me again. He brought me a simple button. Take a look. This is his picture. He suffered, okay, as a little child from leukemia. Here is a date, November 20, 2004, when he was completely cured. And here, I saw the word, which I never looked at it before, survivor. And for the first time, at age 64, I was able to put in words why I was always an optimist. With everything that I went through in life, I have never felt like a victim. I was always a survivor. As a victim, you can blame anybody you want, but you may not achieve all your goals. As a survivor, whatever you want is yours. And again, I'm going to repeat it because it's very important. Whatever you want to do not say, I will try. That's not a commitment. Always say, I will. Now, let's assume that you want to build something. And I'm coming to you and I'm telling you, you know what? You cannot do it. Remember something. That does not mean that you cannot do it. The only thing that it means is that I cannot do it. So I'm repeating again, do not allow anybody to define who you are. And here, very briefly, I'm going to show you a few pictures. My sister was born after the war, so she's just a child of Holocaust survivors. Okay, I grew up in Romania, like I told you, Transylvania, with a small community. There were very few Jews there. As you can see, that's me. She was in my class, he was in my class. But because everything that I went through in the camp, I was not as developed as they were. Okay, my great grandparents. I lived all my life without having a support system. I never knew my grandparents, my great grandparents, cousins. I didn't. It's only my parents that I knew. Okay, these were my grandparents. Okay, my grandmother. Okay, as you can see here, my grandmother. Okay, this is, I'm assuming, I think this was my father. And this was the other one that survived, Uncle Max. Okay, he was a refugee in Shanghai. Okay, two of the people of the pictures, an uncle and an aunt that were murdered in Auschwitz. I don't have any more pictures because what happened is I became homeless and I lost everything. The two brothers reunited for the first time in 47 years on January 30, 1966, in Santa Barbara, where they lived. This is my cousin, my paternal, from my father's side. My father's mother, my paternal grandmother, was first cousin with him. And he was the foreign minister of Italy in 1922. And his successor was Benito Mussolini. If you don't know who he was the dictator of Italy who allied himself with Hitler. So when we have time, I go into the question, how is it possible that in a short period of time, in 11 years, the Jews, being in the top of the world, became the scapegoats? And I can talk more about it. Remember this, that all the tragedies in the world started with bullying. So when you see somebody bullying, don't be afraid, okay, to report it or to do whatever has to be done to stop it. Okay. I also believe that children are not guilty of what their parents or grandparents did. But that is intellectually, I can talk about it. That is about reconciliation. But I was invited to go to Germany. And I did not know how emotionally, how I would feel meeting descendants, children and grandchildren of high-ranking Nazi criminals. And I wanted to know if my head, in my heart, if intellectually and emotionally, if I am connected. I went over there and I'm very happy because I learned a lot. Okay, I realized that they have more in common than differences. And with quite a few of them, I became friends. Okay. Let me go to somewhere else that I want to show you. Okay. The first time that I felt freedom, I grew up in a communist country, is when I came to Israel, to the United States. Okay, and here's some pictures of today. I used to volunteer for Civil Air Patrol. Maybe you have something in Mexico also. This is the civilian part of the United States Air Force. Okay, this is not the military, it's a civilian part. And it looks like that I am part of the United States Air Force. People that don't know about Civil Air Patrol, when they see me in the uniform, they will salute me. They think I'm in the service. My favorite animal. My parents in Israel, you know, they used to like to play cards. Here it is. I wanted to see how I look with curly hair. There was a time I had more hair. Okay. This is, I wanted to be a cowboy. Even when I was in the shelter, I also was felt dignified. You know, I kept my dignity. Okay. On a cruise, it was only one time that I wore the tuxedo. I'm not a formal person. I'm a regular person. This is volunteering. Like I told you, I volunteered for 18 different organizations. Each one gave me something different. Turk for a day. Okay. In Israel, where we lived, my parents were friends with two other couples, and they celebrated their 50th wedding anniversary. Okay. This was in Mexico City, Mexico City or Guadalajara. I don't remember. I think it was Guadalajara. And interestingly enough, okay, the owner of the restaurant came to me when found out that I'm a Holocaust survivor, gave me a napkin, asked me to write something, and put that napkin on the wall. Okay, and this is being with Make-A-Wish Foundation. Miss New York gave me a kiss. So now what we're going to do, we're going to open it up to Q&A. Any questions on any subject? Okay, and since I have sometimes a difficulty understanding or hearing well, please read the question for me, okay?
Sure, thanks, Sami. If anybody has any questions, please, we ask you to write them down in the question and answer section. Or if not, you can just raise your hand and I can let you speak. And if there are any other questions, we can just move on. Sami, I have our first question.
Yes.
Hey, Sami, if you could go back to the past, when you were a child and homeless, and you see your past self, what would you say to him?
There is not much you can say. The only thing that I will say is, you know something? I have my revenge. I'm alive. And I have children that will perpetuate my heritage. I don't want his forgiveness. Doesn't mean anything. I don't want to talk to him, to be friends with him. It's over. It's the past. Somebody asked me if there is something I regret. And I said, I do not regret anything that I went through. Because every time that I overcame a challenge, you see, I use positive words. I did not use the word problem. Every time I overcome a challenge, I become a better person, a kinder person, and a better me. So accept what happened to you. Head on, face it. Okay, overcome it. And boy, will you be a better, kinder person.
Thank you very
Yes.
much, Sami. We have a second question. What was your engine or motivation to move forward every day?
Today?
As in life, I think they're asking what was your
In
motivation to move forward? Yeah, in general, yeah.
Yes. Well, it's my positive attitude. When I go to schools and even on Zoom, I ask a student. I pick up randomly a student and I look at him and I say, have you ever had the worst day in your life? Can you think of one? And he says, yes. Can you think of something even very small, but something good that happened in the same day? That student thinks and he says, yes. And I said, do me a favor. When you go to bed, don't think about the whole day that was miserable. Think about that little thing that was good. And go to sleep with that thought. In the morning, you will wake up, okay, you will realize it's a new day. It's a fresh day. It's a new beginning. And you will face life with positivity. It's a new day. You don't know what will happen. And I like to use a quote. The march of 1,000 miles starts with your first step. The first thing that you have to do every single day, every moment, is to think positively. If you think positively, you will use only positive words. Do I use sometimes negative words? Yes. But as soon as I do, I correct myself immediately and I find a word that is positive. Positive words will lead to a positive attitude. Positive attitude will lead to positive experiences, and you will have a better life. So again, to summarize, think positively. Let me give you an example, something that maybe will bring it closer to your understanding. When IBM came out with the computers, it used to take a whole room. A lot of you don't even know how life was 50, 60 years ago. But interestingly enough, there was a saying, and they used to call it GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. With a computer, you have to be very exact. You cannot put a comma instead of a period. And I want you to think of the brain as a computer. Whatever you put in your brain, that stays and that comes out. So in your brain, always think positive. Put positive thoughts in your brain. If you're going to put negative thoughts, that's exactly what it will be. And associate yourself with positive people. Don't let negative people to drag you down. Associate yourself with positive people and learn from them. How did they become positive? Why are they positive? Thank you. That's a very good question.
Thank you very much, Sami. We have a couple more questions. Sami, were you able to forgive the damage that you suffered?
Well, there is nothing to forgive. There is something to accept. It happened. And all I had to do is by accepting it. I don't have the need to blame anybody or anything. It happened. Now, what I have to do is, like I said, let's move forward. I cannot do anything about it. Now that I'm in pain today, there is something I can do about it. Okay. But the fact that I was subjected to medical experiments, do I have to be angry? I don't think about it. I don't remember it. It's not important. It happened. Right now, I have to live today. That's the best. The one thing, you have a lot of young people here. There is one thing that I want everybody to really understand. The most important person in your life was until now and will always be just one person. You will never have somebody else as important. And that person is you. If you want to be respected, first of all, learn to respect yourself and respect somebody else. Don't wait for somebody else to come and to respect you. You, first of all, respect yourself and respect somebody else. You want to be kind to other people. Learn to be kind to yourself. Every emotion that you can think of, you want to love, learn to love yourself. There are a lot of people, even adults, okay, that have difficulty loving themselves. Okay, you want to forgive, learn to forgive yourself. So you made a mistake. I made so many mistakes in my life. Guess what? I don't even remember most of them. I don't even know what it was all about. Remember, let the past be where it belongs, in the past. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sami. We have another question. Did you ever get married?
Yes, I got married. That's why I said I have a son, I have 2 grandchildren. I got divorced. Okay. I actually remarried. And when I got my first divorce, I went back to Israel. But then I realized that I'm more American than Israeli. I lived more years in the States, and I came back in 1988. I settled in New York, and this is my last home now.
Thank you very much, Sami. Next question. What could you say has been the most difficult moment that has happened to you?
Wow. Now that leads me to something that I want to talk. Very good. I love it. Now, a 5th grader, I started speaking with 4th graders. They're not too young to learn about the horrors, okay, how inhumane people can be one to another. A 5th grader asked me to summarize 72 years of life in 2 sentences. You may think that it's a stupid question or a stupid request. It was probably one of the best ones that I received. I gave an answer, which I thought was a very good one. But when I came home, I did not like it. I said, I must find another way to answer something like that. And something I had never done before, but because of that question, I started to think, what were the 3 most important moments in my life? And the first one was having my son. I knew the joy of parenting. It is the greatest high that you can ever have. It cannot be taught. You must experience it. Number 2, I knew hate, but not from the head. That relatively easily can be overcome. I knew it from the heart. And I know what hate can do to a human being. Sami, as a human being, at that moment did not exist. I couldn't believe how low I could sink. I've been able to overcome it. Today, I cannot hate anybody. Everybody to me is a human being. There is only one race, the human race. And the third one, you may be surprised, is being homeless. If I would have not been homeless, I probably would have not achieved all the accolades and where I am today. And most importantly, I would have never found my mission in life. Now I found my mission in life to educate the next generation, and I know that my life has not been wasted. That is such a great feeling. And a lot of people are searching for that one. And that's why I'm trying to tell you again, okay? Do not regret any challenge that you have faced or that you will have to face. Accept it, deal with it, and move forward. Wow, that was a very, very good question. I did not know how to say it, but this is it's very important. Great.
Thank you very much, Alexa. And we also have another question from the same person. How would you recommend dealing with traumatic situations.
A situation or with the person?
A traumatic situation, things that can be emotionally or physically scaring, I guess.
Okay. The only way that I can, and I'm talking from my personal experiences, the only way that I can suggest is start, okay, with a positive thought. Whatever the situation is, look at it. Okay, something good is in that particular situation. It cannot be 100% bad. There is something good in it. And look for that opportunity. Look for that good thing. And that will help you, okay, having, okay, that moment, that positive thought, okay, and put it in your head, that will enable you to move forward, okay, without bitterness, without anger, okay, without feeling guilty. Now, one of the things which is very important, especially emotionally, you may be angry today for whatever reason. You are allowed to express that feeling. Do not keep it inside. I kept all my emotions inside for 68 years. And guess what? It hurt me. But right now, by being able to talk about it, being open about it, you can ask me any questions on any subject. I became a free, liberated person. So whatever emotion you face through it, it can be for the moment, it can be like for a week, whatever it is, okay, express it. Now, sometimes you may not want to talk to your parents about it. You may not want to talk to a friend of yours. Write it down, okay? But find a way to get it out of your system. Don't keep it there because it will hurt you. I love the question. Very good questions. Wow. Yeah, very good questions.
Thank you very much, Sami. If there are any other questions, please, I'm going to ask them to write them down in the Q&A section. Doesn't seem to be any other questions up until this moment, Sami. So I think that
Right.
would be all for today.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to add something as wrap-up statement or something would you like to say to finish this off?
I would like to say something that probably they don't know. I'm assuming they're coming from different economic environments. But when I grew up in Romania, did you know that we did not have a sink in the house? We had to go to the well. Can you imagine how many times we had to go to the well? It was quite a distance with 2 pails and to come home so 4 people can take a bath. We did not have a toilet in the house. We had only outhouses, even in the school. In the school, we did not have a gym. Okay? All the exercises, everything what they had to do, it was done in the courtyard. The most popular sport in Romania, like in Mexico, is football. We did not have enough soccer balls. We used to make soccer balls, football balls from rags. My uncle, who lived in California, he sent us a package. And in the package, there was a real football. Guess what? A simple item made me the most popular kid in the block, in the school. The other interesting thing is there were a lot of things, okay, we could not afford because they were not available or they were too expensive. So we used to go to farms and steal fruits, but not when they were ripe, because the owner would come and beat us up. So we used to eat them when they were still green, and the green ones have a sour taste. So even today, I would eat a Granny Smith apple that has a sour taste. Very seldom will I eat any other type of an apple. We used to go to the forest, and in the forest we used to collect strawberries, raspberries, gooseberries, or we used to go and to pick watermelon. I was in January 2020. Yes. Last year, before the virus, I was in Mexico. And I came during the high season of the watermelon. My friend could not believe how many times I went to fill the plate with watermelon. Watermelon was at that particular time, it was first of all liquid, it was food, and it had a lot of sugar, and it gave you energy. So we had to find ways how to live. A lot of people don't know, the hunger, the misery that people had to go through and everything else. But we did not look at it. We just overcame it and did the best we could with whatever was available to us. The other thing that I can tell you, for instance, young people, don't laugh, even me. Okay, when somebody said that he was 50 years old, I said, oh no, boy, is he old. And when I was in the Israeli Air Force, most of the soldiers are 17, 18-year-old kids. I was at that time 22. Do you know what they called me? They called me Saba, Grandpa. To them, 22 years old was, okay, very old. So I remember, little things. There are a lot of things I don't remember, but I remember little things. Quite funny. Anybody had questions?
I think there is still a question here by Lili Canseco. Have you met anyone does not believe your story? You mentioned the people about the hoaxers, right?
Yes.
Have you met anybody else that does not believe your story?
Well, the only ones that don't believe my story is the neo-Nazis that put that article on the internet. However, there was somebody from Australia that said, well, I was in the same area where your camp was, and you are not. Okay, you're not telling the truth. I said, okay, what am I going to argue? But in the meantime, okay, that was before he heard my story. Okay, the whole presentation. After that, he changed his opinion. So that's why I'm saying, don't prejudge. This brings me to another point. Being aware of who you are and what you think. There is a museum in Los Angeles called the Museum of Tolerance. Okay. And when people come in, there are two doors. And the first question they are asked is, are you prejudiced? And I said, okay, whichever way you feel, okay, go to that door. There was one door, I am prejudiced. The other one, I am not prejudiced. Most of the people go to the door that says, I am not prejudiced. And guess what? The door is closed. We are all prejudiced. The question is, how do we deal with it? So first of all, you have to acknowledge that is very, very important. Yes, I am prejudiced. Now, I'm not going to give into it, okay? And I'm going to be an open-minded person. So remember, this is very important. You have to acknowledge how you feel, okay?
And I have two more questions, Sammy, that I think they might be able to go together. One, are your children different from other children who did not have survivor parents? And do you keep in touch with other survivors?
Yes, I keep in touch with other survivors, but you may be surprised and don't talk about it. We talk about our regular lives. That's not part of our identity. All of us have lives. Okay, life moves forward. The only time that all of us will talk about it is when we feel and we are invited, okay, to educate the next generation. But that is not the center part of our lives. We move forward. All of us move forward in whichever direction. The other thing is people obviously that did not that have no family that went through the Holocaust. Okay, obviously they feel different, but we also have to understand that also feel different than children that went through, okay, through the Holocaust. Okay, and because I came from a communist country, so I look at certain things differently than people that grew up in the United States. They did not know a different lifestyle. Uh, so we don't really talk about it because many times what I found from my personal experiences, unfortunately, they are not open-minded. They believe in what they believe, and they want to convince you to agree with them. And I say we have to have a dialogue. The first questions when you talk to somebody else from a different religion, a different culture, different country, and they say something that is different than what your beliefs are, ask them a simple question. Why do you feel that way? And then you will be able to understand. Many things that are happening are not necessarily because somebody's a hateful person. Many things somebody says something doesn't mean that automatically that person is an anti-Semite. Many times they use words that are common and they don't know the real meaning of those words and the consequence of what they are saying. And that's why I'm going back, okay? Education is the most important thing. If you want to combat hatred, anti-Semitism, you have to educate yourself. And educate yourself on whatever interests you. And once you made a decision based on information, not on a slogan, but once you made that information, that decision based on information, fight for it. It's your belief, that's who you are. Don't be afraid to fight for it. And I don't know about Mexico, but here in America, a lot of people call themselves Jewish American, Afro American, Italian American, Latino American, Mexican American. I don't like that. I am an American. That unites. But I'm very proud of my heritage. I'm Jewish. So I don't know if you have the same issue in Mexico, but all I want to say is be very, very proud. And some of you, maybe because of a job or whatever it is, maybe you will live in a different country. Adapt to the culture of that country, but always be proud of your heritage. Don't give it up. And keep your traditions and teach your children and grandchildren.
Thank you very much for that wonderful message, Sammy. We appreciate all your positivity, your message of acceptance. It was great to have you here with us today. I don't know if you want to give us a final statement so we can close up the session, or if you just want to say goodbye to all of us.
Yes, I would like to make one statement. Actually, two of them. The first one is when things are returning to a new normal. Hopefully, I will be reinvited to Mexico, and hopefully I will have the opportunity to meet some of you. The other one, I know a lot of people my age that they say that this generation is lost. And you know something? I've spoken to close to 150,000 young people. And I have an unshakable belief that you, okay, will make it a better world for yourselves, your children and grandchildren. I know you're not in a very big, large room, but do me a favor, give yourself a big hand for who you are and what you will accomplish. I am very honored, okay, to have the opportunity to speak with you. And like I said before, hopefully one day I will be able to meet you in person.
Well, thank you very much, Sami, for all of your wonderful words. We thank you again for being with us today. And for everybody who was in this talk, let's remember that we're going to send the information about Sami's page. And if you have any questions, don't forget to contact the English department in case you want to stay in contact with Sami. We appreciate everybody who showed up today, and especially you, Sami, for everything you've done. And we thank you, everybody, for this transmission. We will going to be finished the transmission right now. We thank everybody for being here. Thank you very much, Sami.
And thank you all.